SLT Mobitel, the connection. SLT Mobitel, the connection.
ලෙන්ගතුකම වැඩි කරගන්න ලව්ජු රුපියල් 50ට අඩු කළා.
මාමේ එන්න අපිට එකක් බොමු.
Tonight pays off. Estate workers' strike hits pay dirt as the Wages Board votes for 1,000 rupee daily wage. Target plan. State Minister announces early March vaccination plan for everyone above 30 years of age. Turning allegations into fact. Sri Lanka's ambassador to China speaks on the dangers of unilateral human rights action.
International observers have expressed the feeling that in some of these situations, the intervention may have resulted in more atrocities being committed than alleged at the time.
The big reveal. The Cardinal writes to the President and requests for a copy of the Easter Attack Presidential Commission's final report. All that and much more coming up on First at 9, this Monday, the 8th of February 2021.
Buy a 2-litre Coke and get a glass free.
ඇල්කොහොල් අඩංගු hand sanitizer භාවිත කරන්න. ලෙඩ රෝග ඇති කරන විෂ බීජවලට එරෙහිව සටන් කරන්න. හඳුන්වා දීමේ මිල රුපියල් 350යි.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammika Kanai. Let's start with your local stories. Now, Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith, has sent a letter to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa seeking a copy of the report compiled by the Presidential Commission of Inquiry which probed the Easter Sunday terror attacks. The contents of the report have not been publicized yet.
The final report of the Presidential Commission appointed to probe the Easter Sunday terror attacks of 2019 was handed over to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa on the 1st of this month. Later on the country's Day of Independence, the President pledged to implement the recommendations outlined in the final report of the Presidential Commission. Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith, who had been vociferous about the attacks calling for justice on behalf of the victims of the attacks, has sent a letter to President Gotabaya on the matter. He calls on the head of state to update him on the recommendations made by the Presidential Commission's final report on the Easter Sunday terror attacks.
එම වාර්තාවේ පිටපත කාඩිනල් හිම්පාන්ටද කඩිනමින්ම ලබා දෙන ලෙස උන්වහන්සේ ලිඛිතව ජනාධිපතිතුමාගෙන් ඉල්ලා තිබෙනවා. ඒ වගේ මෙම පාස්කු පොහාරයට සම්බන්ධ වූ සියලු දෙනාගේම සියලු විස්තර හෙළිදරව් කිරීමත් උන්වහන්සේ බලාපොරොත්තු වන අතර ඒ අයට නීත්‍යානුකූල වූ දඩුවම්ද ලබා දෙනු ඇතැයි
In the meantime, several opposition parliamentarians too have requested that the final report of the Presidential Commission which probed the Easter Sunday massacre of 2019 be tabled in Parliament. They had made the request during the party leaders' meeting worked off at the Parliament premises today.
Pay just 500,000 rupees to reserve your unit today. Mulberry Residence.
Now, Sri Lanka's ambassador to China, Dr. Palitha Kohana, says that interventions in the Middle East by states in recent times have resulted in large atrocities than were alleged. He was speaking at an online symposium on the United Nations responsibility to protect commitment in the backdrop of increasing human rights pressure being brought to bear on Sri Lanka. Dr. Kohana added that within such action, the Western media is usually employed in a Goebbelsian manner to portray allegations at the level of actual crimes and make them accepted facts. He also said that there will always be suspicions of the intention of such actions as to whether they act to uphold the rights of the people or fulfill their own objectives.
There has been a tendency in recent times for the human rights community and interested parties to blow up events or even create events and on the basis of that generate a feeling that a crime as identified in the RP principle has been committed. I think some of the incidents that gave rise to the uprisings in the Middle East during the Arab Spring and the toppling of governments with outside intervention in many cases may have been actually been generated by the interested party. And today we wonder, in retrospect, in hindsight, whether the outside intervention was warranted or not. International observers, many of them may have expressed the feeling that in some of these situations, the intervention was actually not warranted. In fact, the intervention may have resulted more atrocities being committed than were alleged at the time. This tendency to promote allegation to the level of actual crime is also a huge, because we find that for this, the media is employed. The Western media in particular, there is a tendency for the Western media to cling on to an issue and then push it to a point where then it becomes a fact. Remember that it was Goebbels in the Nazi regime who said that if you repeat a lie often enough, it becomes a fact. This has been happening more than once in recent time. Incidents may have happened or may not have happened, but they are exaggerated, allegations are made, and from then onwards, a narrative is developed which results in pressure for the world to take action. At the same time, there are governments, especially in the West, which would rush to take action, get involved in situations. It is, in a sense, understandable that the enthusiasm on the part of the human rights community, I believe that the international community up to now has not demonstrated a combined willingness to take action or not take action in situations. And the unfortunate thing is that when a group of countries make it their responsibility to protect civilians as opposed to the responsibility of the international community, then we have a problem in our hand. And then there is also a question of credibility. Is this action being taken because the civilian lives are that important, or because certain other objectives are being advanced? The liberal democracies of the world, mainly in Western Europe, they may not necessarily be the icons of purity as they claim to be. I personally think that it is not proper for small groups of countries or a single country to get involved, even though it might come under pressure from human rights organizations or humanitarian organizations. They may, and they have a right to scream, jump up and down if things were not going according to their vision for the world. That's fine. But states are different. States have a much wider responsibility, much greater responsibility, because what you do to someone else today could happen to yourself some other time.
State Minister of COVID Disease Control, Dr. Sudarshini Fernandopoulos, says that the inoculations for everyone over the age of 30 will begin during the first week of next month. They include the next two priority groups of the elderly above the age of 60 and those between 30 to 60 years of age. Inoculations of frontline health workers and Triforce's personnel began last month.
Following the arrival of 500 doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine on the 28th of January, Sri Lanka began its vaccination drive the very next day by inoculating frontline healthcare workers and Triforce's personnel. As of yesterday, a total of 161,773 people have been administered with the jab, including 1,625 being inoculated yesterday.
දැනට තියෙන දත්ත වලින් පැහැදිලිවම දකිනා දෙයක් තමයි යම්කිසි කෙනෙකුට මේ රෝගය වැළඳීමේ අවදානම ඉතාමත්ම අඩු වෙනවා. එන්නත ලබාගත් කෙනෙකුට යම්කිසි ආකාරයකින් මේ රෝගය වැළඳුණත් ඔහුට ඒ රෝගය බරපතල වීමේ අවදානම අඩු. දැනට අලුතෙන් ලැබෙන සාධක මගින් පෙන්눔 කරනවා එන්නත නිසා රෝගය පැතිරීමත් අඩු වී සෑහෙන ප්‍රමාණයකට අඩුවීමක් තියෙනවා කියලා. එන්නතක සහ ඒ වගේම ඕනෑම ඖෂධයක යම් යම් අතුරු ආබාධ තියෙනවා. එවැනි අතුරු ආබාධ මේ එන්නතෙනුත් සමහර අයට ඇති වෙලා තියෙනවා. නමුත් බරපතල අතුරු ආබාධයක් කිසිම කෙනෙකුට ඇති වෙලා නැහැ. විශේෂඥවරු කියන්නේ අඩුම වශයෙන් අවුරුද්දක් මේකේ තියෙන ප්‍රතිශක්තිය පවතී. දැනට මේ එන්නත මූලික පරීක්ෂණවලදී නිර්දේශ කරේ පළවෙනි එන්නත ලබා දීලා සති 4ක කාලයකින් දෙවෙනි එන්නත ලබා දෙන්න. නමුත් දැන් ලැබෙන සාක්ෂි වලින් පෙන්වන්න කරනවා සති 4න් දෙනවාට වඩා සති 12න් දුන්නාම වඩා ඵලදායී වෙනවා කියලා. සමහර විට ඉදිරියේදී ලැබෙන සාක්ෂි අනුව මේ සති 4න් වෙනුවට සති 12න් ලබා දෙන්න ඉඩ කඩක් තියෙනවා. නමුත් අපි දැනට දන්න ආකාරයට මේ දැනට තියෙන වෛරස් ප්‍රභේදයන් මේ එන්නත මගින් නිසි ප්‍රතිශක්තියක් ලැබෙනවා.
In the meantime, State Minister of Primary Healthcare, Epidemics and COVID Disease Control, Dr. Sudarshini Fernandopoulos, says that the inoculation for the next priority groups, which are the elderly above 60 years of age and the working population between 30 to 60 years of age will begin on the first week of March.
දැනට පාවිච්චි කරපු එන්නත් ගණනය කරලා අපි ඊළඟ ප්‍රමුඛතාවය දෙන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන පුද්ගලික වෛද්‍ය ක්ෂේත්‍රයේ කොරෝනා මර්ධනයේදී ඉදිරියෙන් ඉන්න වෛද්‍යවරු සහ අනෙකුත් කාර්ය මණ්ඩලය සඳහා මේ ගැනත් අපේ අවධානය යොමු වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම අපිට කෝවැක්ස් පහසුකම හරහා මාර්තු මුල වෙනකොට එන්නත් තොගයක් ලැබීමට නියමිතයි. ඒ නිසා අපි විශ්වාස කරනවා මාර්තු පළවෙනි සතිය වෙනකොට අවුරුදු 60ට වැඩි ජනගහනයට ඊට සමගාමීව 30 සිට 60 අතර වැඩ කරන ජනතාවටත් මේ එන්නත් කරණය ලබා දීමට හැකියාව ලැබෙනවා කියලා. මේ වෙනකොට සැලසුම් කරලා තියෙනවා මධ්‍යස්ථාන 4000ක්. ඒ 4000න් දිනකට මධ්‍යස්ථාන 2000ක් ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන ආකාරයට හැම මධ්‍යස්ථානයකින්ම 300 දෙනෙකුට දිනකට එන්නත් ලබා දීමට. ඒතකොට දිනකට ලක්ෂ 6ක ජනතාවට අපිට හැකියාව ලැබෙනවා දිනකට එන්නත් ලබා දෙන්න. මාර්තු පළවෙනි සතියේ මේ එන්නත් කිරීම ආරම්භ කරනවා. ඒ සඳහා ඔබ තමුන්නාන්සලා සූදානම් වෙන්න.
Now then, the Colombo district has reported the highest number of COVID-19 infections of over 25,000 since the second wave of the virus, or pandemic I should say, broke out on the 4th of October last year. In addition, according to the daily report issued by the National Operations Centre for the Prevention of COVID-19, the majority of the country's coronavirus fatalities during the second wave had been people above the age of 71.
772 coronavirus infections were confirmed from 23 districts across the country yesterday. The Colombo district once again topped the daily COVID-19 caseload with 245 infections. Meanwhile, 214 cases were confirmed from the Kambha district, while 53 infections were reported from Ratnapura. Further, the Kalutara district recorded 49 cases, while Kandy confirmed 40. Kurunegala also reported 41 infections. The remaining 130 infections were reported from 17 other districts. Since the second wave of COVID-19 broke out in Sri Lanka on the 4th of October last year, a majority of the infections have been recorded from the Colombo district thus far, with 25,934. The Gampar district, where the second wave hit first, had only recorded 13,754 infections up to now, while a total of 5,259 cases have been reported from the Kalutara district. Meanwhile, 514 persons have been confirmed as COVID-19 positive so far today. In the meantime, Sri Lanka's COVID-19 death toll rose by 5 to 356. 4 of the 5 victims are women. The COVID deceased from yesterday had been from the Colombo, Galle, Badulla, Negombo and Kurunegala districts. According to the National Operations Centre for the Prevention of COVID-19, a total of 343 COVID-19 related deaths have been taken place in the country during the second wave of the novel coronavirus. As such, 46.35% of deaths reported have been identified to be persons above the age of 71. The percentage of the number of persons who perished between the age 61 to 70 is 25.36%. 14.57% of the fatalities, meanwhile, have occurred within the age group of 51 to 60.
රෝගී සත්කාර කැඳවල් 11,433ක් පමණ රෝගී ප්‍රතිකාර මධ්‍යස්ථාන 79ක ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙමින් පවතිනවා. මීට අමතරව පෞද්ගලික රෝහල් හා සම්බන්ධ රෝහල් බවට පරිවර්තනය වූ ගොඩනැගිලි හරහා අපි එවැනි මධ්‍යස්ථාන 5කුත් කොළඹවට පිහිටුලා තියෙනවා. ගිලන්ගත වන කොවිඩ් රෝගීන් සඳහා ආයතන 9ක දැඩි සත්කාරක ඒකක සූදානම් කර තිබෙනවා.
In the meantime, 740 persons were given the all clear to return to their daily lives today after successfully recovering from the novel coronavirus. This places the total number of recoveries in the island since the inception of the pandemic at 64,141. Meanwhile, the number of active COVID-19 cases in the country is currently at 5,365.
The Colombo District Court has extended its enjoining order issued against MTV Private Limited to the 12th of March, further preventing the news channel from broadcasting any defamatory news targeting George Stewart Health, its senior executives and chairman Dilip Jayavira. The order was given when the case was taken up before Colombo Chief District Judge Rashanta Godavela today.
George Stewart Health filed action in November last year against MTV Private Limited Sirasa News First, a news outlet owned by Rajendran Rajamahendra's Capital Maharaja Group, for defamatory news items carried by the channel on the 11th, 13th, 16th and 19th of November with regards to the importation of COVID-19 rapid antigen test kits. The plaintiff alleged that the defendant had intentionally broadcast mischievously fabricated, factually incorrect news designed with malice to mislead the public and defame George Stewart Health as well as the company's chairman. The enjoining order issued in November and extended on several occasions since then prevents Citizen News First from broadcasting news reports deemed defamatory against the company and its chairman, Dilip Jayavira. Accordingly, both parties presented facts regarding the interim injunction when the case was taken up today. Based on written submissions, Colombo District Judge Rashanta Godavella decided to proceed with the legal action. The judge also ordered the lawyers of both parties to file their written submissions before March 12th. With that, the Colombo District Judge announced the extension of the enjoining order imposed on MTV Private Limited until March 12th.
We will see you shortly after this break. Bear with us. Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, leader of Sri Lanka's indigenous community, Uruwarge Vannilatto, and the Centre for Environmental Justice have filed a petition at the Court of Appeal seeking a court order preventing the Mahaweli Authority from acquiring the indigenous community's lands for maize cultivation. Now, the Mahaweli Authority of Sri Lanka, the Director General of the Department of Wildlife Conservation, Wildlife Minister C.B. Ratnayaka, and the Secretary to the Ministry are among the respondents named in the petition. In the petition, the VADA chief states that steps are being taken for the Mahaweli Authority to take over their native lands, where his community has been living for centuries, and hand them over to private companies for the cultivation of maize. Now then, the long-awaited 1,000 rupee daily wage hike for estate workers was approved by the Wages Board following a vote held at the Department of Labour today. After the Wage Board meeting, Minister of Labour Nimal Siripal De Silva said that action will be taken to legalise the new increased wage by a gazette within the week.
The government's budget presented by Finance Minister and Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa last November announced a long-awaited wage hike of 1,000 rupees for plantation workers from January 2021. However, objections by plantation companies ensued. An incentive-based wage model was proposed as an alternative that the companies believe would allow its workers to earn up to 1,000 rupees per day. Estate workers in the meantime voiced their opposition to such a wage model and continued with their demands for a flat daily wage increase as promised in the budget, finally resorting to trade union action last week.
It is a system where the workers become entrepreneurs, and we have seen for ourselves when we give them the opportunity how they work and earn more. I think as management it is our duty, it's incumbent on us to change the model and give an opportunity for the workers to earn more, and I think it is a very regressive step to remain in this 150-year-old attendance-based wage model, and planters or the Planters Association can't see any logic or any reasoning in why the unions are pushing the workers back to a system where sort of back into a cage-like thing, when we as employees are offering a system where they can easily earn more than the expected wage in terms of productivity, which as I mentioned is already happening in many estates, and which will enhance the dignity and the value of work. The workers will feel that they are not working for a daily wage, or they are not hired worker, but that they are own masters, that they manage the destiny, that they manage the earning capacity and potential when they go for work. And this is not a new concept or our concept.
Furthermore, Minister of Labour Nimal Siripala De Silva during previous discussions also said that the wages of the estate workers will be somehow increased as they expected. As the plantation companies and the estate unions failed to come to a conclusion in the past discussions, the issue was forwarded by the Minister to the Wages Board, and the meeting was worked off this afternoon at the Department of Labour.
වෘත්තීය සමිති මගින් ගෙනෙන ලද යෝජනාවට අයවැය සහන දීමනාව 100යි මූලික වැටුප 900යි ඒ අනුව පූර්ණ දෛනික වැටුප රුපියල් 1000ක් වන යෝජනාව සඳහා ඡන්ද 11කුත් ඊට විරුද්ධව ඡන්ද 8කුත් ලැබුණා. ඒ අනුව මට වාර්තා කරලා තියෙනවා මේ යෝජනාව සම්මත වුණා කියලා. කම්කරු අමාත්‍යවරයා වශයෙන් මා වෙත පැවරී ඇති බලතල අනුව මම සතියක් ඇතුළතදී මේ තීරණය ගැසට් කරලා ඒට නීත්‍යානුකූල භාවයක් ලබා දීලා එම මුදල ලබා දීමට කටයුතු කරන බව ඉතාම සතුටින් මම ප්‍රකාශ කරන්න කැමැතියි.
ඔව් නමුත් තාමත් තියෙනවා පොඩි කුතුහලයක්.
නෑ කිසිම කුතුහලයක් නෑ. දැන් ඒ තීරණය අරන් ඉවරයි ගැසට් කරන්න විතරයි තියෙන්නේ.
නෑ සාකච්ඡාවට මේ උතිය සමිතිය වලින් මූලික වැටුප 900කුත් තව රුපියල් 100ක් බජට් රිලවන්ස් එක තිබ්බා. ඉතින් අපි ඒකට විරුද්ධ වුණා.
දැන් තව රුපියල් 80යි නේද වැඩි කරන්න තියෙන්නේ. ඕක දුන්න නම් පක්ෂයක් නෑ නේද මිනිස්සුන්ට පව් නැද්ද?
පව් පින් නෙමෙයි අපි ක්‍රමවේදයක් දීලා තියෙනවා 18ට වඩා හම්බ කරන්න. හැබැයි ඉතින් යුනියන් එකේ ක්‍රමවේදයට කැමති නෑ.
අමුතුමා කියන මේ ගැසට් කරන්න අනිවාර්යෙන් කියලා.
ඕ ගැසට් කරන් පස්සේ ඉතින් දැන් රටේ නීතියක් වුණොත් ඒ නීතියට අපි අවනත වෙනවා. අපි ආණ්ඩුවේ වතු අපිට ඉස්සෙල්ලා අපිට බල කරන්න අවශ්‍ය නැහැ. ඒගොල්ලන්ට දීලා පෙන්වන්න පුළුවන් මේ 1000ක් දීලා කරන්න පුළුවන්ද කියලා. අවම වැටුප දැම්මොත් අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම කර්මාන්තයකට අවම වැටුප ගෙවන්න වෙනවනේ. කලෙක්ටිව් ඇග්‍රීමන්ට් එකේ ලැබුණ අනිත් කොන්දේසි ඔක්කොම ඉතින් අපි නැවත සල්කා බලන්න වෙනවා.
ඔබතුමාලා දෙන අනිත් දිරිදීමන කපනවා කියලාද ඔය කියන්නේ?
අපිට නීති දෙකකට යටත් වෙන්න බෑ. මෙච්චර කල් අපි සාමූහික ගිවිසුම යටතේ හිටියා. දැන් පරිපාලක සභාව යටතේ එනවා නම් ඒක නීති පද්ධතියට යටත් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. දෙකටම යටත් වෙන්න බෑ.
We will see you shortly. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is First at 9. Now, an endemic Pandu Karanda tree, once believed to be extinct but discovered in Gampaha, faces extinction once more due to the construction of the Colombo-Kandy Expressway in Mirigama. However, due to the quick actions of the Gampaha District Forest Officer, the rare tree was given a second lease of life after a decision was taken to protect it through possible relocation.
The tree Pandu Karanda, scientifically known as Crudea zelenica, was declared extinct by the 2006 Red List of the International Union for Conservation of Nature. However, the species made a return in 2019, with the tree being spotted in the Gampaha district in the area of Daralua. The tree is located close to the Mirigama section of the Central Expressway, which is being constructed from Colombo to Kandy. When it was reported yesterday that this tree was going to be removed during construction of the expressway, the process was halted with the intervention of the Gampaha District Forest Officer, Devani Jayatilaka. In addition to this plant, she says that this site includes 5 endangered plant species and 5 plant species on the protected list. The once thought extinct tree was last seen in Sri Lanka in the 1800s. It was then rediscovered in 2019 by environmentalists when compiling an environmental quality report on the Central Expressway. With regard to this, we spoke to the Secretary to the Ministry of Highways, W.R. Premasiri, who said that the tree will not be cut down but will be relocated. However, spokesman for the Forest Department said this would be the first time such a large plant would be uprooted and planted elsewhere. The spokesman added that it is uncertain as to how successful the move would be. Meanwhile, environmentalist attorney at law Jagat Gunawardana said that damaging this plant is a punishable offence as it is a protected plant under the Fauna and Flora Ordinance. However, speaking to the officials at the Botanic Gardens Department who conducted investigations on this plant, we were told that the seeds of the plant species had been planted at the Royal Botanic Gardens in Peradeniya. Meanwhile, Subject Minister Mahinda Amaravira assured that the tree will not be chopped down.
මාර්ග අධිකාරී අමාත්‍යාංශයේ ලේකම්තුමාට ප්‍රේමසිරි මහත්මයාට කතා කරලා කිව්ව ඒ කටයුත්ත නතර කරන්න අපි පරිසර අමාත්‍යාංශයත් මැදිහත් වෙලා මේ ගහ ඉතිරි වෙද්දී වෙනත් විකල්ප ක්‍රමයක් තියෙනවද කියන එක පිළිබඳව පළවෙනියට අපි අවධානය යොමු කරනවා. එසේ නොහැකි නම් මේ ගහ වෙනත් ස්ථානයක රෝපණය කරන්න අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා.
However, some parties argue that the Department of Forest Conservation has not taken responsibility in relocating the tree and instead has given the contract to an auction house. In the meantime, a group of state officials visited the area of Daralua in Gampaha and decided that until the issue is resolved, the construction of the highway will temporarily be halted. What's more, Venerable L.A. Gunavansa Thera's lawyer has filed a writ petition stating that legal action will be taken against the Director General of Forests and the Director General of Wildlife if appropriate steps are not taken to conserve and sustainably manage the forest resources.
Oil prices rose today to their highest in just over a year, with Brent nudging past $60 a barrel, boosted by supply cuts among key producers and hopes for further US economic stimulus measures that can boost demand. Brent was up 71 cents at $60.05 a barrel, and US West Texas Intermediate rose 64 cents to $57.49 a barrel. Both contracts were at their highest level since January 2020. The oil market continues to tighten with deeper cuts from Saudi Arabia, who pledged extra supply cuts in February and March on the back of reductions by other members of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and its allies. A weaker dollar against most currencies on Monday also supported commodities, with dollar-denominated commodities becoming more affordable to holders of other currencies. Now taking a look at the Colombo Bourse, shares on the Colombo Stock Exchange closed 1.96% lower today, dragged down by losses in financial and industrial stocks. The benchmark all-share price index ended down 162.11 points to close at 8,113.26 after falling 2% in the past week, but is up 19.8% for the year so far. With that, the S&P SL 20 index of more liquid stocks fell 76.64 points to close at 3,227.66. Now here's Hiruni Pereira with a brief report on today's market performance.
Today, market witnessed a waterfall sort of a decline, reversing the direction to the negative territory after 2 consecutive days of uptrend. During the day, index spiked within first few minutes of trading and experienced a gradual downtrend during the rest of session and closed during the day at 8,113 levels, losing 162 points. Material sector, dominated by hay carb and dip, took the lead in turnover, closely followed by capital goods sectors. Today, market surpassed an year-to-date net foreign outflow of 10 billion with a low foreign participation.
Meanwhile, in the currency market, the Sri Lankan rupee was quoted at 194 to 195 rupees and 50 cents against the US dollar, 0.78% lower for the day compared to last session's close of between 193 rupees and 70 cents to 194 rupees and 25 cents. Now let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee fared against other major currencies during the day. Rescuers today kept searching for 192 missing people in the Indian Himalayas since yesterday, including some trapped in a tunnel after a part of a glacier broke away, sending a torrent of water, rock and dust down a mountain valley. Yesterday's violent surge below India's second highest peak, Nanda Devi, swept away a small hydroelectric project and damaged a bigger one further downstream being built by state firm NTPC. The Uttarakhand state chief said that bodies of 11 people have been recovered. Most of the missing are people working on the 2 projects, part of the many government has been building deep in the mountains of Uttarakhand state in line with the development push. Rescue squads were focused on drilling their way through a 2.5-kilometer long tunnel at the Tapovan Vishnugad hydropower project site that NTPC was building 5 kilometers downstream, where about 30 workers were believed trapped. It was not immediately clear what had set off the avalanche at this time of the year, with freezing temperatures with no rain. A team of scientists were flown over the site of the incident today for surveillance to find out what exactly happened. Water pockets, which form lakes inside the glaciers, may have erupted, leading to this event. And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.